Okay, so welcome to another Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we're going to be uh, tackling the AI Daily News Digest from March 10th, 2025.
Yeah.
You know, trying to extract the signal from all the noise and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always the
Yep,
challenge, right? So much happening.
exactly. And this digest, wow, I mean, it was packed.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild one.
We had everything from these crazy new AI agent platforms to super in-depth stuff about optimization techniques.
Right, like the whole spectrum.
But we got to
Yeah.
focus, right? So we're going to zoom in on what really caught my eye, at least. First, all the buzz around these new AI agent platforms. Then how language models are changing, like adapting to all sorts of different tasks. Oh, and we can't forget the advancements in image and video generation. This stuff is always mind-blowing. And lastly, some crucial hardware and optimization news.
Sounds good. A good mix.
So should we just dive right in?
Let's do it.
All right, the one that everyone's been talking about, Manus AI. There was a lot of excitement even before the digest, and then we saw it at a leak showing it off.
Oh, yeah. Building that endless runner game with 3JS.
Yeah, like a simple web-based game, but still.
Impressive stuff. Definitely got people's attention.
But then at Philschmid chimed in,
Yeah.
and things got a lot more interesting.
Right. See, at first, everyone thought Manus AI was like this brand new foundational model, like a Claude or GPT, whatever.
Whole new model. Yeah.
But it turns out, not quite. What at Philschmid helped clarify is that it's actually built on top of Anthropic's Claude Sonnet. And the real magic is this set of 29 tools that it uses.
29 tools. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's like a whole toolbox. And what's even cooler is that it can actually control a web browser using like open source tools.
Oh, wow.
And get this, it operates in these isolated sandbox environments.
Sandbox environments. So what's the point of those?
Well, they're super important for safety, like it's a way for the AI to experiment without any risk of messing things up in the real world. It's like a little contained space for it to play around.
Oh, that makes sense. Like a digital playground.
Exactly. And that whole browser control thing, using open source tools, it really shows that these new platforms are getting good at using stuff that already exists.
Clever.
I think.
Efficient.
Exactly.
Okay, but here's where things got really interesting for me. Ed Philschmid also said that Manus AI actually outperformed OpenAI's deep research on the GAIA benchmark.
Oh, yeah, the GAIA benchmark. That's a tough one. It's designed to test like general AI capabilities across a whole bunch of different tasks.
So that's huge, right? Outperforming deep research.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's not easy to do. And of course, it led to a ton of debate online. I mean, Etchigmana's joke about it just being Claude plus browser use kind of sums up one side of the argument.
Yeah, that Manus isn't a new, super intelligent LLM.
Right. It's more like an agent framework.
Which I think brings us to this whole concept of AI agents. Maybe we should break that down a bit.
Sure. I mean, it can be confusing. So think of it this way. A foundational model like Claude is like this incredibly smart brain. It understands language, information, all that stuff. An AI agent takes that brain and basically gives it hands, like the ability to actually do things in the world.
Hands, tools.
Tools, exactly. It can use tools, browse the web, even interact with other software, all to achieve a specific goal. It's about combining that crazy reasoning power of an LLM with the ability to, actually take action.
Okay, I get it. So Manny's isn't a smarter brain. It's just a really good body that knows how to use Claude's brain and a bunch of tools.
Exactly. It's all about the execution.
And I guess that's where the debate comes in.
Right. Some people were like, well, if it's just Claude plus some tools, what's so special?
But then others were saying that the real innovation is in that body.
Precisely. The way it uses those tools, the whole agentic architecture, that's where the magic is. Like someone compared it to P2LR router models,
Yes.
those systems that direct traffic across different pathways.
I vaguely remember those.
Yeah, so Manus might be doing something similar. It's figuring out the most efficient way to use Claude and all its tools to get things done. It's not just about having the best parts, it's about how well they work together.
Teamwork.
Yeah, AI teamwork.
But, it wouldn't be the AI world without a bit of controversy.
Yeah.
So the digest also mentions some pushback against all the hype and marketing around these AI startups.
Yeah, especially the whole invitation code thing. Feels a bit exclusive, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah.
And, I mean, is it really necessary?
Right. There's definitely a sense that some of this marketing might be overshadowing the actual tech. Like, are we getting carried away with the hype?
Maybe a little. But anyway, moving on.
Okay, yeah.
The digest also talked about MCP, SLOP, and ANP.
Oh yeah, those acronyms. They were everywhere after that AI Engineer Summit.
Right. What was that all about?
Well, it all boils down to this fundamental problem. How do you get all these AI agents to talk to each other?
Oh, right. Like if they're all running around doing their thing.
Exactly. They need a way to communicate, share information, coordinate. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol.
And it got a lot of attention.
Right. Yeah, especially after that workshop with Mahesh Marag.
So what is MCP, like in simple terms?
Well, think of it as trying to create a universal translator for AI agents.
Cool. So they can all understand each other.
Right. A common language. And the workshop covered everything from the basics to actually building with MCP and, what the future might hold. It's like they're really pushing for this more structured approach to agent communication.
Makes sense. But MCP isn't the only game in town, is it?
Nope. You've got SLOP and ANP as well.
SRP and ANP. Okay.
Yeah, so SLOP stands for Simple Language Open Protocol, and ANP is Agent Network Protocol. And the interesting thing is some people are worried that MCP is just too complicated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're arguing for something simpler, like SLOP.
So it's a trade-off. Like, do you want something really powerful but complex, or something easier to use but maybe not as feature-rich?
Exactly. And what's cool is that this is all happening out in the open. The digest linked to some GitHub and X posts for SLOP, and there's a GitHub for ANP too. So the whole AI community is involved in figuring this out.
I like that. Open source, collaborative.
It's the best way.
Okay, moving on to something that could really change how well these language models perform, monitoring chain of thoughts.
Ah, yes. This is a good one. The digest highlighted this new model, a Clevo GPT Gemma 2B Coty reasoning. It's a fine-tuned version of Google's Gemma model, but with this really advanced chain of thought reasoning.
I'm kind of familiar with chain of thought reasoning, but for those who aren't, could you explain it?
Sure. So basically, it's a way of getting the model to show its work step by step. Instead of just spitting out an answer, it shows you how it got there, what it considered, its whole thought process.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it turns out that this makes a big difference, especially for complex reasoning tasks. It's like, asking a student to show their work on a math problem. You get a much better understanding of how they think.
Right. So it's not just about getting the right answer. It's about understanding the process.
Exactly.
And how does this new Gemma model improve on that?
Well, the big thing is that it can kind of think twice before giving its final answer. It's like it has this more deliberate reasoning process. And the really exciting part is that this means we might be able to get better, more reliable answers, even from smaller models.
Smaller models.
Yeah. So instead of needing these massive resource-intensive models, we might be able to get similar performance from something much smaller.
That would be huge.
It would.
Okay, the last thing we wanted to talk about is what the digest called the viral squish effect.
Catchy name.
Right.
Yeah.
Though it seems like it was more about the general limitations of current language models, particularly when it comes to coding.
Yeah, viral squish effect isn't like an official term or anything. It's more about all these discussions around, are these smaller models, the ones with less than 70 billion parameters, are they really good enough to handle complex code bases?
And what's the verdict?
Well, it's still up for debate. But the general feeling is that we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet.
So close, but not quite.
Yeah. There are still some hurdles to overcome. For example, even simple coding tasks with models like QWQ can use a ton of tokens. Tokens are like the basic units of text that these models work with.
Okay, and that's a problem because...
Well, using too many tokens makes things slow and expensive.
Efficiency.
Right. But hey, there's good news too. We're seeing a lot of progress with smaller models like Quencoder 32B.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that.
It's actually been really good at working with existing code bases, even outperforming some older, larger models.
Oh, really? That's impressive.
Yeah. And it shows that it's not just about the size of the model anymore. It's about how well it's trained and how you use it.
So quality over quantity.
In a way, yes.
But we also saw some real-world examples of, the struggles that developers are having. Like Falcon and Eagle was talking about how he has to constantly guide the model.
Right, right. I think that highlights the gap between these cool little demos and actually using these models for serious projects.
Yeah.
It's not always smooth sailing.
Yeah. You can't just plug it in and expect magic to happen.
Exactly. You need to be involved. You need to guide it, which is why some people are suggesting combining different models, like using QWQ for brainstorming and then Quencoder for the actual coding.
That's smart. Play to each model's strength.
Exactly.
Okay, one last thing about accuracy. The digest talked about this pretty high hallucination rate with DeepSeek R1.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. Hallucination is when a model generates, incorrect or nonsensical information.
And they saw this even when summarizing short documents.
Right. Which is a little worrying, especially because it's being used in Perplexity AI's deep research.
A 14.3% hallucination rate. That's not insignificant.
Definitely not. And some people are speculating that the problem might be with DeepSeek R1's system prompt, the initial instructions you give it.
Oh, right. So even with powerful models, the way you set them up can have a big impact.
Absolutely.
Interesting. And finally, the digest mentioned this model presumption thing that people were discussing on the OpenAI Discord.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating one. It's basically this idea that these highly steerable models, they're so good at following instructions that they sometimes miss the bigger picture.
Oh.
Yeah, like if you tell it to do something in a really roundabout way, it'll do it, even if there's a much simpler solution.
So it's kind of taking your instructions too literally.
Exactly. It's assuming you know exactly what you're doing, even if you don't.
And that's a problem.
Well, it can be. It would be nice if these models were a bit more proactive, maybe offer suggestions or even push back a little if they see a better way to do things.
So a little less robot, a little more human.
Uh-huh. Yeah, something like that.
Well, I think that pretty much covers it for this deep dive into the AI Daily News Digest from March 10th, 2025.
We covered a lot of ground. AI agent platforms, communication protocols, chain of thought reasoning, coding challenges, hallucinations.
We did.
Yeah.
And hopefully, all of you listening out there now have a better sense of what's going on in the world of AI.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
And it's really amazing to see how fast things are moving.
It is. But it also raises a big question, As these systems become more complex, more powerful, how do we make sure we understand them? How do we manage them responsibly?
That's a good question.
It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Agreed.
All right, well, that was a good one.
Until next time.